So my simple cub that I built with GPS and flight controller and all that cool stuff is no longer. So I don't have a plane. I don't really want a plane to fly around. I've got this set of electronics from an AXN cloudfloater. It's pretty cool because this receiver has a variometer built into it, and I've programmed my transmitter to have all these cool sound effects that go along with it. And so it's basically like, I obviously crashed the hell out of this thing, and it's just been sitting on my shelf. You know, I really want to get a proper full FPV plane set up again, but for now, in the interim, just to have something to fly around and play with, I'm gonna build another FliteTest plane. This time I'm gonna build it with plans instead of a speed builder kit. I've got plans and I've got foam. I've got some spare pieces left over from Simple Cub because I've built 2 Simple Cubs. So I printed these out. I actually only paid for black and white, but they gave me color, so that's all right. But the annoying thing is Officeworks, where I got these printed in Australia, I tried to upload the full A1 file and it just kept complaining that it was slightly too big. So I had to resize this about 1% or something. So that scale is slightly off. Instead of exactly 10 millimeters, it's more like 9.5 or 9.6 millimeters. But I figure everything's scaled down exactly that much, so we should be right. Now the other challenge, and this is going to be a big challenge because I'm going to have to be thinking about things as I build it. All these orange crisscrosses are supposed to be where you leave paper attached to the foam, the FliteTest foam. The foam doesn't have any paper. It's just literally straight foam. It's also 1 millimeter thicker. But it's a very similar consistency. This is the FliteTest foam here. So very similar sort of thickness, 1 mil thicker, same sort of weight. Like I can feel it's quite similar. It's just not going to have the paper, like it's the same sort of density because there's lots of different types of foams out there. The plan is basically all these places where you've got crisscrosses where you leave paper behind and then do a fold. I'm just going to have to cut those right out and not have the paper, and then I'll just glue this piece to the side of this piece. That's a couple of variables there that mean this is not going to be 100% straightforward. Oh, the other big variable is this motor. It's not labeled at all, but from what I can tell, looking it up, this is a 2200 kV, and it spins a much smaller prop, but obviously faster because the FliteTest asks for like a 1200 kV, their B or C packs. This is more like a FliteTest A pack. I'll have to kind of eyeball the placement of the motor, the angle of the motor, all that sort of stuff. It's got its own firewall here. I've got some plywood firewalls, so potentially I could attach it that way, but we'll just see. I think I'm just going to pull all this apart. And I'm going to build the plane and then decide, because, you know, in theory, I could even use this big chunk of foam that's attached to it and just attach that to the plane. I don't know. It's kind of fun to build something where you don't have, it's not just like Lego. Because the FliteTest, you know, the kits, they're basically like Lego. That's really great for a first time build. This is a bit more like actually having to think about things and plan them and get them all to fit. So I've got all these things programmed in.
Enabled. Engine disabled. Altitude vocalization every 10 seconds. 0.6 meters. Variometer on. 0.2 meters.
Essentially what you can do is use it to see whether or not you're hitting a thermal to gain altitude. It'd be really cool to have a good glider. I thought about building an actual FT Soarer. Looks a little boring. If I'm fair. Like it's only designed for 2 to 3 channel, but I'm going to start off. I've got plans for the FT Explorer. That's what I'm going to build, and we'll see how it goes.
hypnotized. What's up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through. Times don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world but keep the sky on your mind. Get on board. We're soaring on top of
a little update on progress halfway through building. This thing is really solid. There's still another piece to go in here, but it's starting to feel really solid. Now, it's kind of very solid, and I know from seeing my friend's FT Explorer that it's a bit of a chunky plane, and I'm kind of looking for a glider with 4-channel control. So, you know, this is kind of cool. Like, you know, you can put the thing here and replace that if you crash, and you can also build an FPV platform here. You can put a camera and transmitter and stuff. That's the idea. You remember at the start of the video I said 6mm foam, whereas FliteTest foam is 5mm, and I said that the plans I was printing are slightly smaller. I had to resize them for the print shop that I used, like probably less than 0.5%, but they had to be shrunk. And also I said I'm going to have to account for all this when I build it, and I didn't. So a lot of these keys that help you line everything up, they weren't fitting, and I'm like, why aren't they fitting? I've cut everything perfectly, and it's because they were 5mm thick and the foam is 6mm thick. But the more pressing problem is that this is supposed to go in here, and it's not going to go in there. These walls are now 12mm thick, whereas they're expected to be 10mm thick. This is actually probably the same. Yeah, this is the same width, so that's fine. But it's just that these walls are 12mm thick. So you've got 4 mils of error there. So like this thing is like really way too big. So what I kind of thought, like, what am I going to do? Like, it's kind of like, what I thought you could do is you could actually print the tile version on a home printer so that you can play around with it and play around with it until your keyholes, like this, are exactly 6mm. So basically just printing it slightly larger, slightly larger, slightly larger. Measure these 6mm, bang, you've got the settings perfect. Then you just go print the whole thing. You'll be building that slightly bigger plane, but everything will line up properly. So that's an option for you if you're... I don't have a printer. So what I'm going to do is say goodbye to this hefty ass bitch. This may well get used. This is the tail boom. The wing is the hard part of any design. And, you know, there's center of gravity and all these sorts of different factors involved. But the wing, you can't just wing it. You have to actually know the airfoil shape that you're making. And so what I'm going to do, like, I just want a glider. So I want a glider that's 4 channels. So what I'm going to do is build 2 of these wings. I'll have 2 of these single wings. I'll have an epic long wing. And then I'm going to build my own version of a base. Build all the same control surfaces at the back. The tail, you know, the elevator, the rudder, all those things, and attach them to the tail boom. And yeah, I'm going to end up with something at the front that I'll build myself that kind of holds all the electronics. And then I'll have a lot less foam, you know, all these like chunky extra, like, you don't need this crap. And I'll just kind of make a glider. And then it's just a matter of balancing it, which, you know, I'll do with, I don't know, moving the battery around and stuff, and smooth this off whichever way, and then attach, just glue right onto the wing if I want. So this is looking a lot more like a plane now, and it's also looking a lot more like the FT Explorer. I've kind of abandoned my idea of going super custom and just making it work. I started to worry that this was just a bit too big, and if I had the wing down low here, then it's going to throw off all the aerodynamics, and so I just basically have been going back to the FT Explorer. As you can see, I've done a bit of a dry fit on the electronics. I'm just going to have these sitting here for the control rods. I've adapted the control rods a bit. I'm kind of like off the plans now and just figuring out how it's all going to work and just making it work. I don't know where the electronics normally go on the FT Explorer, but I'm going to have my ESC in under here, just because that's where it fits. Shave off this bit of foam, attach this spooner, and then cable comes up here for my battery, and I've put a really long runway of Velcro so I can adjust the battery to get the right balance for the CG. So yeah, I think it's going to be think it's going to work, but I'm just kind of flying by the seat of my pants now. This right here, this doesn't fit obviously in the middle, so what I'm going to do is I figured out where it's supposed to go up to. I'm just going to sand this down until it slides in, and I'm going to have to cut some extra holes to fit these ESC cables through. I'm also going to have to put something over this nose, and this foam doesn't bend very well, so it's probably going to be quite straight. But yeah, I think it's almost to the point where it's all going to come together. Okay, well this is all very exciting. I've got the plane together after a lot of work.
Altitude vocalization disabled. Engine disabled.
So all the control surfaces are working exactly as I want. And
Engine enabled.
if we turn the motor on, it's moving forward at about 25% throttle, so that's a good sign. The all-important balance test though. Okay, so that's the point, and that's the point. Ready? Moment of truth. I can feel what it's going to do already. Alright, so if we go back about half an inch. Okay. So that's not going to fly. And the battery is pushed up to the front already. So let's try adding some dead weight at the front, which is never fun. So I've just got two AA batteries. And we'll just test that. Still not good. Okay, there's some things I can do. Alright, so I took out some weight at the back here, and I also cut a hole in the bottom because the pivot point is here. So this tiny bit of weight here is like taking a huge chunk out of here. But it still didn't balance. So I had to go and get a fishing lure, a lead fishing lure, and I've taped that and glued it to the front. And now, find our point. I don't love that. So apparently, I looked online, apparently this plane design is notorious for being tail heavy. I think that's probably at least neutral. So now I just need to wait for a really, really calm day and I'll give it a go. So I'm out of the flying field. It's 5 km/h winds, which somehow still feels too windy. I got up specially at 6 AM, a couple of hours earlier than normal, to come out here while it would be calm. And I was just putting the plane together on top of the roof of my car, and I've somehow pressed down in such a way that the entire wing, the entire freaking tail boom has just snapped. Like, I even brought this super packing tape just in case I needed to do some repairs, but I can't fix that with tape. This hobby, man, it can really knock you around. And have a crack at fixing it with this tape. It's like, worst comes to worst, I can cut the tape and glue it later. Wow, alright. Seems to be stable. Yeah, what can you do? Okay, let's see how we balance. Added a little bit of blue tack. See how this goes. I just stripped the battery as far forward as we come and put a tiny little rock inside the nose. Alright. I think that's as good as I'm going to get. I can't believe 5 km/h winds are this windy. But anyway, it's taken a while to build this thing. Man, I'm gonna be surprised if this thing fucking flies. It is haphazard.
RF signal critical.
Yeah, well, the range seems to be working fine. This is stressful, but I guess this is part of the hobby. Maiden flight of a new plane.
0.9 meters.
My gut says I should actually move away from these poles.
Enabled.
2.5 meters.
Oh, those nerves you get when you're about to launch a plane for the first time. My God. Oh yeah, baby.
3.1.
It's quite underpowered. Oh, I'm having to really up elevator this whole time. Oh my God. What did I just say about those poles, Andrew?
Engine.
Well, okay. What do we call that? Success?
1.6.
Oh my God, dude. I've never seen a plane explode like that. I fucking hate this foam, I gotta say. Like, yeah, that was my own stupidity. But boy, do I hate this foam.
One.
Look at it, it just
5.
exploded. I mean, I'm not building an FT Explorer again either. I'll just go with a basic ass freaking glider. I need something lighter anyway. That motor was obviously struggling. It was full throttle, had to elevate her up in order to keep going.
1.5
Shut up!
meters. Receiver still connected.
God damn, dude. Stunned. Those poles, there's this perspective on them is so hard to see sometimes. So it's so hard to get a good lock on where they are. I should have just pushed out into the open field. But I've hit those poles so many times with FliteTest foam and whatever that other preformed foam is, EPL or whatever. And the planes just bounce off them. Anyway, I have to go home and do the saddest thing ever, which is my one battery I'm going to have to put in storage battery. I'm going to have to run it down on my charger because I flew for 10 seconds.